All right, so the Knicks schedule was officially released. We saw a few leaks on Twitter, that the Knicks were going to open in Boston. So now it's been confirmed, October 22nd on national television, by the way. That'll be the first game of a doubleheader on the last season on TNT, unfortunately. And the second game is going to be the Lakers against the T-Bulls. But anyway, just looking at the schedule, we're going to look at it together because I have not really looked at it. I don't think it's going to be as daunting as last year. We already got Detroit, Atlanta. We have a few easy games that I don't remember having too many easy games early on. It is not a back-to-back, so we get the first national game. And, with ring night, I think people are, a lot of people are going to be picking Boston. But on ring night, there tends to be a letdown with the home team when they're getting their rings. The road team is galvanized, looking at what they don't have. And the road team wants to show that they belong. And they usually put a team that's up and coming, that they feel is going to be competitive or is a good storyline. And the Knicks are perfect because they are one of the second tier threats. According to experts, the Knicks are on the second tier. I think the Celtics without KP are going to be muddling. He's very important. They're going to win their games. They're going to be close to the top of the Eastern Conference. But I don't think they're going to be like last year, jumping out the gate that fast. KP is important. He, rim protection, elite shooting. It's hard, even with Al Horford, that's hard to replicate. But they're going to be really good. And so is there going to be a malaise? That is a long run at the end of last year, especially for someone like Horford. Are you going to play him that many minutes? So we'll see how it goes. And there's also the hangover from the championship. Maybe Jason Tatum is very excited for showing the world that he deserved to play amongst the 10 best players in the Olympics. So maybe he has something on his mind with that. Indiana, that is going to be the home opener. That is revenge. That is the team that eliminated. And kudos to the schedule makers, NFL, MLB. It is not easy. You're competing with concerts and different things. I don't know if they have the right of first refusal in every stadium. I would imagine that they are considered the preeminent tenants, but it's hard making a schedule. The Pacers, I don't feel. Listen, they got hot at the right time, and they faced a lot of injured teams, just like Boston did. And Indiana was lucky that the Knicks were not at full strength. And if the Knicks are healthy, and they may not be, because Julius and Mitch are scheduled to be playing around the beginning of the season, so we don't know if they are going to be full participants. They may hold them out. We do have depth this year, so it's, they can sit out a few games and should be fine. So we'll see about that. Cleveland, they also lost last year with injury. They've never been a problem for us, so I don't know unless they make a trade. I don't see them really as a threat. Miami, not the same team. Detroit, that should be a W. The Rockets are up and coming, but they've not made a big splash. We also have revenge for that game that we lost last year because of the ref against the Rockets for an incorrect call. So maybe the Knicks have revenge on that. That's a 4-game road trip from the end of October until election day. I think it's the 4th or the 6th. I can't remember. No, it's on a Tuesday. I don't remember when. So maybe the 5th. So that's a 4-game road trip pretty early. Atlanta with no DeJounte Murray, how they're going to play. That should be interesting. Milwaukee's going to be a very interesting test, especially coming back home. That could be a potential for a loss, I see right there, coming back from a long road trip and facing a team in Milwaukee that has Doc Rivers for training camp. They added Trent Jr. from the Raptors, Gary Trent Jr. from the Raptors. So they're going to be, inspired to prove that they are not on the third tier. They are a second tier or first tier team. Then going back to Indianapolis and Philadelphia, that's going to be a tough road trip. Indianapolis was crazy, but they're crazy in the playoffs. It's a really tough crowd in the playoffs. In the regular season, you have an early lead, they shut up really fast. Philly's going to be nuts. That's going to be a national game on TNT. Knicks are going to get the second most national games. The Lakers get the most, of course, every year. And the Knicks are tied for second with a bunch of other teams. I don't remember the other teams. So that should be interesting. A TNT game with Philly. They're going to want their revenge. That could also be a tough game there. But we'll see how it goes. Chicago is going to be cakewalk. Brooklyn, easy. So this right here is an important stretch where they can get fat on their schedule. Chicago doesn't have DeRozan anymore. They lost Caruso, who was like that. Everybody's competing for Cooper Flag at this point. All four of these teams are in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, so they're all looking to lose. Usually those teams tend to win earlier in the year, but by this time they already get used to losing and they've given up on the season. So this should be a part where you get fat on your schedule. And shout out to the Knicks because they don't play with their food. They will beat teams that they're supposed to beat. So I expect a hearty win streak right here. Then we come our first West Coast trip at Phoenix. Phoenix got better. Can Beal stay healthy? Can Durant stay healthy? They're integrating Tyus Jones. Right? Is it Tyus Jones? It's one of the Jones brothers. I think it's Tyus Jones. Great point guard that they're adding as a starter. They had point guard issues, so they're going to be a lot better. Utah is in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, but they still got Lauri Markkanen, and they still have a few other really good young players. You can easily lose this game in Utah. And this is during like the holidays with Thanksgiving and everything else. So it's going to be a tough trip. I think Denver, even without KCP, they're going to take a step down. They're not going to be tier 1 in the West anymore. They're going to be tier 2, tier 3. So it should be a little bit easier, but it's still a tough time to do back-to-back Utah and Denver because of the altitude. At Dallas kicks our ass, I think the last 2 years. They swept us last year. But before that, we owned Luka. He had never beaten the Knicks. But this is going to be a tough game with all their additions that they added. At Charlotte, another Cooper Flag team. Shouldn't be too hard, but they got LaMelo. If LaMelo's healthy, they can beat people if they get hot. So we'll see how that goes, especially since this is going to be the end of the trip. If the beginning of the trip is winning, then maybe it's a letdown. But if it's losing, you're going to have to give everything for a game. And you're coming from the West Coast to the East for a 12 o'clock game for NBA TV. That's a weird time to start a game. 12 noon on a Friday, is that right? That doesn't look right, but I'm sure it is. That is that's because that's a Thanksgiving, after Thanksgiving game. Okay, got it. So they're introducing more games around Thanksgiving. They're going directly at the NFL since the NFL is going at them with Christmas games. Anyway, New Orleans is a lot better. They still have issues. They don't have a good center rotation. I don't like their paint protection. So I don't think they're going to be as good as people think they are unless they make a trade for a decent center and not just, a veteran rotated. Was it Daniel Theus? That's not enough. Orlando, that's going to be tough. Orlando at home, they play really well in the Garden. Cole Anthony's from New York. He always steps up his game. So that's going to be an interesting game. Orlando, they play as hard as the Knicks do, and they're younger. And they added KCP. Yeah, Orlando's going to be really tough next year. I'm worried about Orlando. Charlotte, again, back here. They tend to suck in New York. Detroit, that should be easy. Toronto, we've owned Toronto. I've not really had an issue even after the trade with RJ and Quickly going there, but Quickly got the bag. But Toronto is another team interested in Cooper Flag. I don't know, and I'm not even sure if they have their draft rights, so they may not. They may have to win this year. We'll see. Then the in-season tournament starts. This is going to be great for a few games here. Are these the knockout round games? These are the knockout games. So some of these are going to be in-season tournament. We'll do a different video on the in-season tournament grouping and where we think we're gonna be after that. So that'll be a separate video. But this will be the knockout part of the round. And this is again when you may have to go against the Celtics 5 times, against the Bucks 5 times, in a sense of your regular season games plus your in-season games plus your games in the knockout round. So you can play a team way more than average. So that's gonna be very interesting for a season for year 2. Then we finish the championship and I think everything else around this time. The regular season games are 12, 13, 15, 16. Knockout games are all the way up to the 17th. Wow. So in-season tournament ends. It'll be around Christmas. Minnesota, New Orleans. Minnesota's gonna be, they're right there, tier 1. Anthony Edwards, people are questioning, is he the guy? So he's gonna come out, and people that play in the Olympics tend to have especially young players, soaking up all that knowledge from all the great players that they get to play with. Anthony Edwards came away with some knowledge there, so I expect him to have an MVP type year. So this is going to be a really tough game right after, and you never know. In season tournament, if you get to the championship game and you've added all those extra games with that high pressure, like this may be a letdown game at Minnesota, depending on what happens for either team. So we never know. New Orleans here. I said what I said about them before. I'm not really worried about them. They have terrible paint protection. Toronto, San Antonio should be able to eat here. Orlando's going to be, again, another tough game. Orlando almost swept us, I think. I think we won one game against them last year, so Orlando's going to be tough. A double, and I like that they're doing this almost like baseball. They're doing back-to-backs in the same arena, so this should be cake right here. Utah at home should be no problem. At OKC, we never play OKC well. They added Hartenstein. They added Caruso, so I fully expect this to be a very tough, if not a loss. I expect us to be the underdog in this game at OKC. I don't know what OKC's schedule. If they're doing 4 games in 5 nights, maybe not. Do they even do that anymore? I don't know. Anyway, Chicago Bulls, again, cake. Orlando, again, tough. Toronto shouldn't be too difficult. Toronto's not leveled up. I'm not a fan. And then Hartenstein comes back on January 10th. That's going to be a big game. But look at all these national games, man. That's crazy. So that's going to be a big game. OKC won both games against us last year. Again, I fully expect us to be underdogs in both games. They play really, really well. And they play 5 out. And Tibbs is stubborn. This is the type of game that you don't play Mitchell Robinson. I think you play Precious more minutes because rim protection, I know you're thinking, well, it's Shea, but they spread the floor with shooters all around him. So I'd rather just do a bunch of switching and not really have a traditional big, but Tibbs will never do that. So that's why we take those L's with OKC. Milwaukee again at home. Depending on how it goes earlier against Milwaukee, that might be a payback game. Detroit should be cake. In the second half of the season, in January, we are going against the Sixers in Philadelphia again. That is also going to be an ESPN game. That's going to be interesting. And it's about Embiid's health. It's about Paul George's health. Maxey is a load. Everybody despised Embiid after that. Everybody gained respect for Tyrese Maxey. He never made any excuses. He did not play dirty. He hit clutch shots. He is a rising and ascending star. I have a real respect for him. He went to school with Emmanuel Quickly, so they're both good guys. Minnesota in the Garden, we beat them last year. I think this was shortly after we got OG, and we put OG on Ant Edwards, and he caused him a lot of grief. He wasn't able to get into his sets, so that should be a great game. Atlanta should be cake. Brooklyn cake. Sacramento adding DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan is a handful, but we got Mikal Bridges and OG to throw at him now, because before it was just Josh Hart guarding him, and Josh Hart, even in the podcast, admitted that he was getting cooked by him. He's his toughest cover, so it's nice that we can throw both those guys. But should be interesting. I don't see the Kings still even past the play-in. They're going to be fighting for a play-in position. They're not going to get a top 6 seed. I don't see it, but we'll see. Memphis is back. Ja, stay off social media, stop being a cowboy, and they should be back into discussion for Tier 1, Tier 2 in the Western Conference. I think they've been humbled the last few years with that early loss against the Lakers, and with all their issues last year where they ended up getting Zach Edey, at 8th or 10th or something. So they had I think the most injuries of any team in the NBA. But they're back, and as long as they stay healthy and as long as Ja stays off social media, they should be good. Denver again coming to the Garden. We absolutely kicked their ass when they came to the Garden last year. And it was mostly because they were at the end of their road trip for the most part. But they're never easy, even without KCP. Ryan Braun. Is it Ryan Braun or is that a baseball player? I don't know. Whatever the kid Braun from Kansas, he is going to be probably the starting shooting guard. So he's a tough two-way player, so maybe he takes that spot. Lakers, of course, that's going to be an ABC game just for clicks because the Lakers are not a championship contender. But they still play well in the regular season. They still got LeBron. They still got AD. Austin Reeves likes to play in New York, or he likes to play anywhere where there's a spotlight. So it should be a good game. They could very well win that game. They won in New York last year. Houston, when they start winning tough road games in hostile environments, I'll believe that they're for real. At Toronto, shouldn't be too crazy difficult. At home against Boston. Wait, we haven't spoke about Boston since the beginning. So are they not going against Boston? Wow, that's crazy. So they opened the season with Boston and they don't face them again until February. I may have missed a game with Boston, but I doubt it. But again, that's going to be a sign. Around this time, KP should be back, so they will be at full strength. So even if the Knicks are in first place at this point, I think people are going to have to realize that Boston will start rounding into shape around this time. I don't see Boston being much of anything after that. Indiana, they'll be healthier in the second part of the season. This is after the All-Star game. I think the All-Star game is usually around February 10th, give or take. But they usually have a week off. Oh, it's right here. Between the 12th and the 20th will be the All-Star game. So teams will start to get healthier after this 8-day break. They're going against Atlanta. That's a win. Should be a win. You know, I speaking about Atlanta, I think people, you know, they had the first pick. They got that French guy, Risache. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I don't know what he's about. So he may be a great player. And not having the competition, because I felt like DeJounte Murray and Trae Young were almost competing. Like your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. So now that Trae is the dude, maybe they'll get back to when they were competitive in the East, or maybe not, because they do have a really good center tandem with Capella and Onyeka Okongwu, who are both really elite rim protectors and rebounders. And if he's doing all the scoring then, and you got Bogdan Bogdanovic back from the Olympics, he should be aiming to go, man. This guy earned a lot of respect from a lot of people in that game against the U.S. Chicago, again, should be an automatic win. Cleveland here, I don't have any issues with Cleveland. I really feel confident anytime we face them. It's almost like I'm almost shocked when we lose to them, you know? This is a murderer's row. No, look at this. Oh my God, their ending schedule is brutal. Starting from February, look at these games. They go at Cleveland, at Boston, home against Philadelphia, at Memphis, at Miami, home against the Warriors, at the Lakers, Clippers, Kings, Portland, Golden State, then back to Miami. Wow. This is going to be the hardest part of the schedule. That is brutal. That is absolutely brutal. So we got to fatten up. I'm pointing to the side that you can't see. We got to fatten up in the first half of the year. We absolutely have to fatten up because this is treacherous. Like I'm looking from February 21st. So 2 days, 3 days, 2 days, 4 days, 2 days, 2 days. So it's like a game every other day. And they're on the road. This is the most brutal part of the schedule. Not even close. And look at this West Coast trip in March. Lakers and Clippers back to back. So and the national game on Thursday, and then the Clippers right afterwards. That is never an easy. I don't even care that Paul George is not with the Clippers. They still have Kawhi. They still have James Harden. They still have a really deep team. The Clippers are gonna surprise people. I think the Clippers are gonna be competitive like they were last year because Paul George didn't even really play that much anyway. Kawhi never really played that much anyway. So it's like it's the same team. I don't see the big deal about losing Paul George. And then the Kings, and we know that they're tough in Sacramento. They may be fighting for a play-in position right here. Portland is an obvious victory, but you have to get that win. Like they're going to be scratching and clawing for wins. So I think Portland is a dub. The Warriors have gotten better. They're not a championship team. This is another play-in team. They didn't make any trades. Lauri Markkanen, Donovan Mitchell, and other people that they were tied to. So they weren't able to pull the trigger on any of those trades, but they're still dangerous in Golden State. Miami, I mean, no one's talking about Miami. So that kind of worries me that nobody's talking about them. We don't know what they're going to pull out the hat. They're usually middling around 8, 9, 7, and then they go on their little run. But I think that, you know, Bam is a great player, but I don't know. Are they going to pull it together? I don't know. Terry Rozier is going to be healthy, so at San Antonio. Wemby absolutely kicked our ass. That was the game that I think Jalen had 50 or 60 points, something crazy, and then Wemby had like video game numbers 40, 20, and 10 or some crazy number. So we cannot drive into the pit against Wemby. And this is Wemby's second year. He's mad about losing the Olympics in his home country. He was crying. He said, I feel bad. I feel bad for the league, for the Olympics, because I'm coming. And he has that swag and he has that ability to back up his shit talking. So watch out. San Antonio, that is going to be a very tough game. They also added Harrison Barnes, Chris Paul. I believe Wemby's going to be an all-star starter this year. Absolutely. And even if he's not a starter, he may be a bench player, and he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year for the next 10 years. So bookmark this. At Charlotte, win. At Washington, win. At home against Dallas, if they're desperate, they can obviously win at home against them. The Clippers, they can win at home. The Bucks, is Giannis healthy at this point? Is Dame healthy at this point? Lopez is old. They have a lot, Bobby Portis is getting older. I don't know. Is Doc Rivers making excuses at this point? Like, we don't know where the Bucks are going to be here. Portland should be another win. Philly at home. Are they resting for the playoffs and getting ready? Cleveland, Atlanta. Phoenix, Boston should be interesting. Are they competing for the playoffs right here? Detroit, Cleveland, and then finally at Brooklyn. So that's the whole schedule. That's it. The end of the year is going to be really tough with that extended road trip. The beginning of the year, I feel like we have to come out the gate really, really early and establish who we're trying to be and who we are. So we should be competing for the top seed with Philadelphia, with Boston, with Milwaukee. Again, Boston without KP after that long extended run. Tatum, getting mad. There's a lot of variables with the Celtics. So we don't know, are they going to have a malaise in their second season? Are they going to be able to come out and do what they have to do? We've added two preeminent wing defenders to deal with Tatum and Brown. We've kicked their ass. Like the Celtics are 28-2 against Eastern Conference teams at home in their last 30 games, and we're both of their losses. So I'm not worried about the Celtics. I feel if we're healthy, we can beat them in a 7-game series, no problem, or even in the regular season. But we're gonna have to fatten up early so that we intimidate teams later on, because that schedule at the end of the year is, with that long West Coast trip right here, that is a daunting schedule. But I'd rather have that to sharpen the iron, especially if you get into a big league. You don't want to get complacent and start having bad habits. Tibbs normally will never allow a bad habit, but I'm just saying you want to have your toughest battles right before the playoffs start. So maybe there's a blessing in that. But let me know. What do you guys think about the schedule? Too hard? Too easy? I was going to say something else. What do you guys think? Like, I'm actually pretty ecstatic about this schedule. I think it's going to work in our favor very well. We got to obviously integrate McCall, even though he's played with his, Villanova teammates in college. This is not college. They're different players now. And it's also not just all Villanova. What's going to happen with our GOAT, Ryan Archer-Diacono? Is he going to get signed? We have a lot of question marks as well, but it's going to be very interesting. Are we going to trade in December for a center when we can trade Precious and other players that signed extensions? Because he did waive that no trade provision. Are we going to move him around here to get a legit backup center or potential stretch center that's available, or another star that, has to be out? Is Julius going to get moved? He can opt out after this year. I think the only way he automatically does not get traded is if he changes the player option in the second year of the remaining deal into a team option, because it'll make him more able to trade him, because they can obviously release him or do whatever. He's not a prototypical player in this new NBA. He's not an accurate enough three-point shooter. If I would give him one piece of advice, work on nothing else but three-point shooting. Three-point shooting, defense, and passing. If you work on that and you mold your game to that, and think of Brook Lopez, who was a back-to-the-basket type player, if he can do that, I think he can extend his value and get another really good contract. But if he tries to think that the league is going to adjust to him, it's going to be an issue for Julius. So that's going to be interesting. We got to figure out how that works. Mitch is going to be, is not going to play all 82 games. OG's not going to play all 82 games. Is Deuce, Tyler Kolek, the rest of the rookie bunch, are they ready to contribute this year? Campaign, is he only for emergencies? Like, a lot of questions. So I'm excited for the season to start. I'm excited that the schedule came out. So it's been a slow news summer so far, except for the Olympics. But anyway, we'll do another video on the in-season tournament at some point when I, have time to do that. And then we'll talk about that. We're probably going to release that right before the in-season tournament. But anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you when the season starts. See you on the next one.